You are listening to the USDN on the DSPN.
It's a trap!
What is up, everybody? It's the chairman here of the United States Department of Nerds, where we are for the people, by the people, and of the people. And tonight, comics aren't just stories. They're classified anomalies of art, imagination, and unregulated nerd energy. Tonight, we're stepping through a dimensional rift into a fantasy apocalypse wasteland where Greek gods take up arms, mutant cyborgs screech for blood, and unicorns, well, they suffer fates we don't describe before dinner. Guns, magic, mayhem, and machines. This is Lord of the Cosmos, number 5. An 80s inspired, heavy metal drenched, cyber fantasy odyssey, and the mastermind behind this mutant empire is with us tonight. Creator, illustrator, and a fantastic world builder, the artist who makes lizards with revolvers look dignified. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Lenox.
Chairman, thanks. I am blown away by the kind words. I'm still blown away by the cool intro, Little John, Star Wars, and I just realized the background is like we're flying through space. So I just now realized that, and it's like we're on a big trip together. Thanks for having me as a guest this evening.
Absolutely. You're welcome, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. You're the first guy who's like, hey, here's all my stuff. Can I come on? And I was like, dude, I didn't even have to ask for shit. You were just like, yep, here you go, dude. Here's everything. And it was literally everything. I was like, oh, this guy made it so easy. Like, hell yeah, I want this guy on.
Well, here's the thing. It's hard enough to get people to want to look at what you're doing because there's so many options for people to read, watch, listen, etc. that in a world of file sharing and organization, you got to make it easy and painless because we're always trying to find new readers. So I'm glad you appreciated that. I have everything always ready to go. I'm always eager to meet new and diverse audiences from around the galaxy because I always want to find new readers, right? Because that's what it's really all about.
Oh, yeah.
As creatives, we want to get new people on board.
You definitely got me as a new reader. And like I told you earlier, I read it again today. I read it when you sent it. I read it again today. And each time you read it, you find something else you really like about it. And I can always get behind and support that type of entertainment. But first, welcome to the Council of Nerds, my man. And before we crack open your latest chapter of issue 5, for the uninitiated, what is Lords of the Cosmos and what chaos is about to erupt for people just learning about it?
So the story of Lords of the Cosmos starts off in issue 1, where we're kind of, as the readers, rolling into the aftermath of decades or centuries of warfare on a planet that is kind of like Eternia from He-Man and Masters of the Universe. It's kind of like Mongo from Flash Gordon. It's kind of like the planet from Thundercats, First Earth, and now I'm forgetting Third Earth, right? Where there's technology, there's magic, there's robots, there's talking cats, there's wizards, there's cyborgs. So pretty much anything can happen, right? And you've had the Lords of the Cosmos and then their enemies, the Disciples of Umex, who are both basically armies that have been fighting for quite some time, and they stopped fighting because they've beaten each other to a pulp over the last couple decades. So it starts off with the villains. They're the focus, and they're starting to go back on the march because they've gotten off the mat and they want to hunt down the Lords of the Cosmos, and they want to finish it after many rounds of fighting. And then we start following them as they realize the Lords of the Cosmos have gone into hiding, and they start laying siege to the world. And over the first five issues, the villains, the Disciples of Umex, have taken their campaign to the capital of the world, Gemspire, and the Lords of the Cosmos are making a decision about whether or not to come out of their self-imposed exile and or retirement, and working to summon all of their remaining soldiers from around the world. Each issue is an anthology, though, because I love anthologies. I've always been a huge fan of books like 2000 AD, Heavy Metal, etc. I've always enjoyed that format. So what we've been able to do with Lords of the Cosmos is we have our main story that basically follows that storyline, which is the main, current time story. But each issue has branching side stories that start picking up on characters or events you see in the main story. And I always like to think of Starship Troopers. Would you like to know more? So you'll read the main story, and then you'll start seeing, other stories by different writers and artists in this universe where they start spotlighting and highlighting, again, different issues, different characters. So we keep building the world out like branches from a tree. So where the main story is going is a little bit obvious. It's going to be a final showdown. Ideally, we can wrap it up in 10 issues. That's been the plan since we started it years ago. Yeah. So we're kind of pushing towards the good guys and the bad guys having one final throwdown for the ages. But along the way, we're discovering a lot of, well, what the hell is going on and who are these characters? And as we've talked about before the show, there's a lot going on, right? So the world of Lords of the Cosmos and Planet Aiden and the Disciples of Umex, there are layers and layers and layers and things, and we start going backwards in time, by the year, by the decade. One of the stories goes back hundreds of thousands of years to a time where there's intelligent plants fighting on the planets, that one of those characters exists into the present as basically a intelligent plant that lives inside a machine that apparently can't die and has been making bad decisions over millennia, and now has decided to fight for the side of good in the present. So that's really what Lords of the Cosmos is. But, from a reader standpoint, it's a black and white anthology. And I like to think about it a lot as the issues are very influenced by Heavy Metal Magazine in 2000 AD for the formatting. So the books have between 3 and 5 stories in each book. And so I'm black and white, and there's a lot of different artists. And there's a lot of different, writers and styles. So it's Lords of the Cosmos, but, myself and Jason Palmentier and Dennis Fallon, we've always appreciated and had a lot of love for other people's, diverse talents, diverse skill sets, different writing styles, different art styles, but to bring it under one banner with a character guide and an ongoing, story Bible. So that's kind of the general gist of what Lords of the Cosmos is. Thematically, things that we were inspired by, Silverhawks, Thundercats, Masters of the Universe, Flash Gordon.
Which is wild because all those things are back now.
Yeah, they're all cycling back. Thundar the Barbarian, which was a cartoon from the early 80s that I loved a lot as a kid. And so if we gave Lords of the Cosmos kind of a theme, like you have like Western science fiction, I would call this sci-fi barbarians. Right, because like I said, it fits in with again some of those titles. Again, Silverhawks, Thundercats, Flash Gordon, Masters of the Universe, where it's kind of there's kind of like some swashbuckling heroes, but then there's robots, flying horses, jet planes, right? Where there's a lot of things that just kind of don't make a whole lot of sense. Like here's a talking cat and guys with rifles, and you have to have a little bit of disbelief to say, okay, we're going to understand there's some things in here that just they don't really make a whole lot of sense. I remember with, He-Man, one of the toys was a jet fighter that looked like an eagle. And it's like, okay, so you have a guy with a sword's going to fight like an F-15. But, for what it was, it worked because it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
And that's what makes it beautiful. And one of the things I want to point out, he was referring to the stories within the stories within the stories. And if you pay close enough attention, you'll see a little box in the lower right-hand corner sometimes that refers to what they're talking about. Oh, this is from this story from this issue. And then if you have it digital like I do, you can just go back to that story and that issue and be like, ah, yeah, now I remember what that right there.
So
Yeah,
it's funny.
I really like the way you did that. That to me was like, I'm like, this is awesome because although there was some that you're referring to that haven't happened yet, like it's in a different issue. I was like,
right. So some of them are dead end, right?
Exactly.
Right, so this.
I'm like, I see what you did there, but man, I'm like, okay, number 6 is when.
So some of the ones are we may never go anywhere. Some of them we may drop in and they're there. Some go back to old issues. So you don't really know. So one of the things that we did in issue 4, we asked fans to write us letters, and the fan letters were hilarious.
And they were printed at the end of issue 4, which I thought was cool. Like some of them.
Well, and one of them went off about the live action movie that went south, and how the toy line and one person talked about their mom throwing out their back issues back in the day. I actually had one person that was like, I don't remember the show being on, but it's cool you got the license for it. And that was kind of another kind of bit of fun we had with it. Like let's drop people in immediately that the issues are self-referential to being a bigger pop culture phenomenon. Kind of like when you watch South Park and they have Terrence and Phillip, right? It's like a popular show in universe. So Lords of the Cosmos, the back of every issue has a toy. Like that
that was one of my favorite things to see when you got to the end of the issue and you seen the toy that was picked for that one issue. I was like, dude, this is so cool.
So there's a lot of that stuff that's self-referential that like we're dropping you in as a reader, that we're all kind of in on it, that Lords of the Cosmos was like this big pop culture phenomenon from the 80s and kind of went away in the early 90s, that in that letters page is kind of the one hint to that phase of where it was trying to break out like other, pop culture items of the time. And it just didn't quite make it into the 90s, right? The kids were into it. Yeah. It kind of faded away. So,
well, some of it couldn't have come with it into the 90s. Like some of the cartoons and some of the stuff that was said or done during the cartoons in the 80s. Yeah, they probably wouldn't have made it too far in the 90s anyway.
No. So that's kind of the overall big picture look of the theme of the book, the style and type of the book, and then kind of our own nod to our kind of in-universe fun we have with this is Lords of the Cosmos, and it's this gigantic property that never existed.
So going in, was this always planned to be a 10-book series, or was there a certain point in issue 1 that was kind of like an aha moment, like, hey, I think we got something here. Let's start planning this out further into the future?
We always had an idea for where the series would start and end. And as we've slowly gotten through, 5 issues, we have a pretty good idea of where it needs to end. I say 10, it could go 11, but like the idea is that issue 6 is going to be, if it was a roller coaster, it's going to be like the top of the mountain. And then from there on, it's going to go crazy on the way out. And then the idea is to end it, right? To bring it to a conclusion and bring it to an end. So I think it's going to end up being bigger than we originally thought it was, but you got to tell the story that you want to tell, and we know how to get there. We got to wind our way through doing it.
So did you always imagine it being an anthology style like that? Because I mean, I'm like you. I love a good anthology. Like there's nothing better than a good anthology comic book.
So when we started working on this book the series 9 years ago, Dennis and Jason had so many ideas and I had so many ideas, and the idea was that I would draw everything. And then you hit a point with the first issue where it was like, these are so many good ideas. I don't have time to do all this. And we said, well, what if we just changed what the format was and made it an anthology, and then we can have other writers, other artists, and then it frees us up to do, because you only have one artist, then I become a limiter, right? Then if I can't, it'll take me forever, So you have to be able to let go of doing everything and embrace the change, right? Embrace having people that have completely different styles and everything else. So
it's cool though that you learned that early on and notice that limitation early on, because there's a lot of people who don't know how to let go.
Yeah,
and they become their own worst enemies.
So one of the things that happened during issue 3 was David Newbold, who's done a couple of the short stories for us. He's an incredible artist. He said, hey, I'm not really clear how big some of these characters are. Are they man size? Are they giants? Are they kaiju? He just said, I have no idea what's going on. So we actually hired an artist to do a character scale sheet, which in
Do you
issue
want to bring it
3,
up?
I don't have it handy, but did I
do.
send it to you? Bring it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So we
We'll
did
start
that.
with good guys or bad guys.
We can do the good guys. Let's do them.
Oh,
But David,
okay. I'm down with
David
that.
David asked us to do that. And again, that was one of those things that it was a super request, and we really, should have thought of it in the first place. But we've used that now since issue 3 to give to people to say this is a guide. These are names. These are what these characters generally look like. That way, and then you can see how big they are, right? So most of the characters are man-sized, and there's a couple characters that are bigger, and then you have one that's like a kaiju. So one of the guys, Eric, who designs or builds all of our toys, Eric D. He's so funny. When he saw this, he said, those are weekend action figure purchases, and then the middle-sized ones are birthday, and the big ones are Christmas when I was a kid. Right? So
it's true. It's true.
So it's like an action figure, vehicles, and then the big character is like a gigantic playset, like the USS Flag, right, from G.I. Joe.
The turtle is by far like my favorite, and then this doesn't even show the battleship that they ride on.
Yeah, well,
the giant sea turtle.
So the giant sea turtle, when you meet him in issue 4, he basically has like a battleship, like he's a ship,
mm-hmm.
right? But then when he's introduced in the current time, he's just got his cannons on his side. So we're basically kind of throwing the fact that he's kind of a multi-purpose tool, where he can be modded up with different equipment and tools. He can walk on the land, he can swim in the sea, and you see him as a warship, and then you see him as kind of this gigantic walking creature. We do have his origin story written. It has not been drawn yet. Yes, his origin story is pretty wild. It basically plays out like a 2-part cartoon from like Transformers, where they introduce like a weird character.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, he's an incredibly old character. He predates Orcamemnon, the plant character. So he goes back even further beyond.
Oh, right? Nice. Because I liked his backstory too. Like that one was really good, and the fact that he's still carrying around his brothers and sisters basically in seed form, just waiting for the opportunity to replant them and reintroduce his people to the world.
Yeah. So kind of a quick insight into that. So each side has one gigantic character. So the bad guys have like a cyborg dragon, and then the good guys have a gigantic turtle. The idea is that those two creatures were weapons from a war that predates the plant people that you saw.
We'll give them a little sampling.
So the plant people that you see, that's their post-apocalyptic era after another war that knocked them down from being like very high tech. So that plant robot armor that Orcamemnon has, that's a relic from the time when these creatures were used as weapons in a war, right? So we've kind of gone backwards a little bit too with some of this stuff, which is really fun. I like weird old stuff, and I like fleshing out some of these characters, how they're all interconnected.
Yeah, now these, like, all the characters are so different and so unique, and I love the fact that, like, the part of the anthology is giving us the backstory to a character. It's a very unique thing, and I really like that you're fleshing it out that way, because it's not something you see often. And when those popped into my email, I was like, oh, he sent everything, like literally. And I was like, looking at these, I was like so fascinated by the character sheets that I probably spent a good, 15, 20 minutes just studying character sheets before I even started reading volume 1 of this book. And I was just like, I can't get enough of this. Like, it's so good.
If you're of a certain age, and you might be, Chairman, one of the things that I was obsessed with as a kid in the 80s was, especially with G.I. Joe and Transformers, you'd get a toy, you'd get a vehicle, whatever. And on the back, they would have like a card that would say, like, this is, Frenzy. He's a Decepticon. And then if you remember, they had like a piece of red plastic that you had to put up, and it would show you like firepower, strength, intelligence. And then it would have like maybe like a paragraph about the character. Like, this character could, do this and hates this character. And as a kid, you'd have these toys, and you'd have these little, kind of summaries. And that's where our imaginations went wild. So you were like, man, I wish I knew more why Frenzy can't stand, Trailbreaker or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And there was a lot of creativity those little tidbits gave to basically just a bunch of toys. And so a lot
No,
of
it's fun. I like that aspect of it because literally it felt just like a walk through my childhood for 5 straight issues, even through puberty for one of those issues. I'm not gonna lie. There's a cover for number 5 that probably would have helped me get through puberty back in the day.
Yeah.
We're not gonna. Well, we'll talk about the covers later.
Yeah.
But there's literally, it's like I felt like I hit the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, the whole nine, going through this book, and I loved it.
That's awesome.
Let's
if you got that feeling, we're doing our job, right? That's great.
100%. If people didn't say that, then they're lying to themselves. But let's talk about number 5. This is the War on Aiden.
Yep.
And it picks up immediately where number 4 leaves off. Like no breathing room, no water breaks, no safety rails, just straight back into it. And let's just talk about like the stories in this book. You have Enemy of My Enemy.
Yep.
And we see, I think I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Is it Aegis?
Yep.
Aegis. Okay. So I pronounced it right for a whole issue. I'm happy.
Good.
So he summons all his other Lords of the Cosmos to him with his sword, which has a very unique history in and of itself. And I want everybody to go buy. I think it was issue 4 that gave us the backstory. Go read issue number 4 because you get a phenomenal backstory for this sword that is like he's probably the most interesting backstory of everybody in the book, just about. And he talks. Right? He has a thirst for blood. I love it. I've seen that in the D&D show on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
They had a sword like that. Not the Mighty Nine, but the one.
Was it the one that was like secret video games or something?
No. I'm brain farting it, which I've been doing a lot here lately.
You'll find
I need some ginkgo biloba or whatever it is to help you with the memory stuff. But his mental state as he summons the heroes with like the living lightning.
Yes.
Like this dude had basically just been staring into space for eons, basically at this point. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, the threat is real. Let me bring the homies in for the business. So what were y'all thinking when y'all were doing that scenes with him?
So the idea with the Lords of the Cosmos is when they start off, they're basically there used to be a lot more of them, and there used to be a lot more of Umex guys, but in the toy world, right, you'd only have a limited set. So you have to explain why there are only 15 of these guys on each side, because it's a toy set. So that's really cool though. Most of his men are dead. His brother, who's the statue with the trident, he's dead. So his own brother got killed by the main villain, right? And
we see that.
And he's like, I'm out. He's like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to kill. He goes, I no longer want to participate in any of this. I'm out. And there's only a handful of his soldiers that are still with him. And then they're all arguing, like, we should fight. We shouldn't fight. It's all rumors. We can't just sit here and do nothing. And then they show him what's happening around the world. And he basically loses it. And he's taken that sword and he's like locked it away because it's so powerful. It's like a weapon of mass destruction. So he goes, gets it, and he says, we have to summon what's left of our soldiers, because the rest of them are they're around the world. They've all kind of quit on the game. And he's basically it's the Thundercats hoe, right? The symbol, it's the bat.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing I thought of the moment he held up the sword and the lightning shot through and the thunder rang out. I was like, yeah, Thundercats, ho!
So basically, he's saying I've got to get everyone back together, right? Which we'll address that in the next issue of do they come back? Do they not want to come back? Like, where are the Lords of the Cosmos are not together. The bad guys are together, and as you learned in issue 4. They're doing things on purpose to bait these guys out. And then you caught the thing where they were jamming all the radio signals from the Capitol. And then Umex, the main villain, says, shut it off to his guys. And they're like, well, but if we shut it off, then the Lords of the Cosmos will hear the distress call. And he's like, well, I know. He wants to fight. He's like, no, shut it down.
He wants his end game.
He wants the end. He wants to draw these guys out, right? So then that's part one of the main story. But the living lightning travels all around the world. So we kind of use that as a narrative device to introduce you to what's going on at this siege. So really then the next part of the main story is, as we kind of go to the cliffhanger, is that Zemba, who is a villain that we haven't really seen a whole lot of, we kind of see her wandering to a small structure where inside is now Mordanix, who we got to learn his back issue in issue 4, and how much he hates Psycorn. And Psycorn has
Psycorn's a cowardly little. And that was actually my very next question for you: is Zemba heading into Mordantic's Pain Palace, and then the relationship between Zemba, Psycorn, and Mordantic? Like, how much of that was organic?
You know, it's funny. It was never initially planned that way, but through kind of talking about where we wanted to see issue 5 end, we knew we kind of wanted to put it all together. Psycorn was always our Starscream. We're all big fans of that original character from the 80s. That he was
the
like
whiny,
sniveling, stabbing shit, and he's been a sniveling failure shit all through the series. And then he gets in trouble where basically Umex is like, take him and torture him. And then you realize that in the past, he's the one that he created Mordanix by, forcing him into this horrible, half-life as this cannibal cyborg.
Him seeking revenge instead of backing him up like he was supposed to is what got Mordantic looking like a vial of,
acid. So again, as we get to explore these characters, when you first meet him in issue 1, there's a lot of pinups and here's these characters are, but there's no dynamic. But now you realize, okay, these two guys hate each other. They have been messing with each other for years. But now the one who's been victimized has been given the power. But now Zemba shows up and basically she's kind of like a resident torturer. And then you realize she shows up and starts behaving very strangely. And then you realize that, wait, whose side is she even on? Right. And then obviously we have,
I like that twist. That was a really good twist in there.
Right. Where now then she murders, she murders Mordanix to save Psycorn. And then we cut to the end. Right. And then, of course, then the question of the reader is, well, hold on. Like, if she's one of the soldiers for the disciples, then why is she betraying these people, right? And so we knew that we were going to have a character betray the bad guys in this issue, and we talked about which one could it be. And we had an idea for Zemba early on where we just said it'd be really cool to just tell a story about what her 9 to 5 is like. Like, what is this character like, this torture queen, like what is her date? Like we thought it'd be funny, like
you know what I thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought so. Zemba, and what was the other girl who was with Mordantic?
Well, there's Obsidia.
Not Obsidia. The girl that was like together with him, like his
that was Lady Vi, and she dies.
Well, Lady Vi and Zemba, they have the lunch together or whatever. So I thought those two were how intertwined and interrelated friends or lovers from the past. And then when Mordantic kills her, I thought when that scene was happening, I'm like, oh, she's circling back.
Well, there's that too.
That's the vibe I got.
She doesn't like him because of that, but she's got bigger plans. And Vi getting killed because there's the implication that they're like in some kind of pseudo religious relationship. Are there more of them? Are there like are there right? So the implication is they're like priestesses in this right. So now we've in a day of the life, right? They have their lunch in a person's, like they use the guy's body they're growing mushrooms out of, like having lunch. And basically, going back to be like, wait, what is the connection between this woman that we met in the shoot for? And
that was my vibe, and I really liked it. And by the way, the show I was thinking of on Prime is The Legend of Vox Machina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so then the origin story with Zemba, we had always had that in the back of our heads, and we thought it'd be cool, right? Just what does she do on a day-to-day? Like what does she do? Right. So we had a lot of these ideas that she would have a torture garden, that she would have gladiatorial games. And what we really wanted to take that story then is to show why she decides to turn on the disciples. Now, look, part of it's because they killed her friend, but there's more going on that she's basically saying, I am going to try to go, I'm going to end around the boss. I'm going to get Psycorn out of here. He's got some powerful weaponry built into him. What if she can take Psycorn and she can make an end around to try to kill the boss?
Yeah.
Right. But you see that anger because she has her slave, right? Gimp guy.
Yeah.
He's basically the Greek chorus. He's asking all these, he's saying the things you would say as a reader, like, well, that painting's as nice as Umex's. And she's like tearing it off a wall. And, you know, she's being constantly humiliated. And she tries to justify it to Lady Vi. She's like, well, no, it's good. It's good. It's good. And then people keep saying you used to be kind of a badass. And now you kind of seem like a servant, right? Is that really who you are? And like, she doesn't like it. And then the end of it is when she tears Umex's portrait out of her house, basically. And she says, Hail Zemba. And, you know, all the characters like, Hail Umex, right?
Yeah. That's like, yeah.
So we've kind of baked in there, like, okay, from the reader, we've had a bad guy now turn on the other bad guys. Well, the first question is, well, why the hell did they do that? So we really thought The Day in the Life was a really fun way to tell that. And then it also kind of leads into, like, that's the planning session where they're discussing the battle that went down in the prior issue.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a little bit of 1001 Arabian Nights where there's a story inside a story inside a story. And you're like, oh my God.
No, that was really cool. And once I realized what was happening with that, because I'm like everybody else, I probably got a little confused at that point. Like, wait, in that one issue, I saw her die, but here she is right now. I'm like, then you're like, oh, this is what happened to this before this. And you're like, oh, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of stuff when it is done properly. And y'all did it up proper. Like, it made 100% sense once you circled back.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, well, this makes plenty of sense. You told us a story, then gave us the events leading up to this story over here, just to circle us back to over here to a present time in the story. I'm like, that's amazing.
And I think we have a note that's dropped in at the beginning on the first page that says this story takes place before the hunger on the prior issue. So we do leave.
You did. There was a note.
But if you've ever read 1001 Arabian Nights, they do a lot of that where you meet a guy and then they kind of like the further you go in the book keeps going backwards to explain things. And then we have a third story in issue 5.
Pulse.
It's going to be a multi-part story. And we have the second part already drawn. We have to just get it lettered now. Where one of the things that we had talked about internally was we wanted to have a Lords of the Cosmos story that was very much like an 80s action film, like a Rambo.
It literally says Aliens meets Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. So we really wanted to have that Rambo Predator where it just kind of comes across as this is going to be kind of like an 80s military movie, but it's going to have Cosmos characters. So again, there's a lizard who's a cowboy, right? He was one of our favorite characters.
So cool.
There's a rhinoceros, right? And then like Wasp with a shotgun that we really learned about in issue 3. He's like the main guy. So there's a smattering of the characters that we know, so we know they're not going to die, right?
Yeah.
It's the cat, right?
And then you got 2 cats named what was it, Booger and something?
Booger and Frodo. That was one of our backers, right? So they have 2 house cats with them. So there's, they have a character that's a total nod to it's basically the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. It's a robot with an axe, right? So you've got this kind of weird crew of people, but we play it straight, right? Where it's like, okay, there's
I think it's cool that you took Kickstarter, like that was an option on part of your Kickstarter was to have a character created and put into the story. Yeah, I see a lot of people like advertising that. Like, oh, you could be a character in the story, but you took it to like another level with it. And I thought that was like really cool.
They got dropped in. And the thing with Pulse is, on the one hand, there's a level of absurdity where they have like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. There's like a pixie, a lizard cowboy. There's a robot samurai. But again, we play it straight where it's like, okay, so these characters are just as absurd as it is. They're a military strike force. They're going behind enemy lines.
I thought it was cool. That was like one of those like cool things like the Stallone movies with all the old action stars. I was like, this kind of feels like that, and they're about to drop in with their little spaceship or whatever. I was like, this is freaking cool.
Yeah, and I really love the action scene where they steal the truck, right? Where they're running around the trucks and they blow up the little outpost, and then they steal basically I don't know if you've ever been near a quarry, but there's one near my house, and there's a special intersection for those gigantic trucks, and those trucks freak me out because they're so big. Like the drive is like 40 feet up in the air, the wheels are like 10 feet high, so the characters steal it. And there's a panel that Sasha drew in that. It's so funny because the rhinoceros is driving the truck. He's just he's behind the wheel, and I'm just he drew that. I was like,
he did the initial burst through too, if I'm not mistaken. Like when he went through the one barricade, he rams through the barricade, and then it's like it cuts over into the next panel or two, and all of a sudden he's behind the wheel of the truck, and I'm like, wait, he's a straight up rhino. He doesn't have hands. I'm like, but he's driving this truck.
He's got his little, he's got his
palms up there. Just
and to me, those are the kind of things that, again, there's a million reasons you'd say it doesn't make sense, but to me, those are the kinds of things that I loved as a kid. So I kind of want to have those kind of levels of absurdity where it's like, so now there's a rhinoceros driving a gigantic quarry truck, and you're just like,
but it makes sense within this story in Lords of the Cosmos, where it's like everything, just anything that would traditionally be in your mind, just toss that shit out and just go with the most absurd, over the top thing possible, and it works perfectly within this world, and I love it. It's a phenomenal thing that you've done with it.
And I think, to me, it's about consistency. So, like, for example, if you had done a comic about like a modern day espionage story, and if you had readers that were like, hey man, you drew that handgun, that's an Israeli handgun, and these guys wouldn't have that, or whatever, right? Where you can get really deep into like the, that kind of car doesn't do that. And I'm one of those guys, right? Like I remember I drew a Cthulhu poster as a spec project, and then my friend Dave used it as a poster for his Lovecraft PI project. And I remember I put in a World War II military group, and there was a gentleman that said, if that U-boat is supposed to be in the Pacific Ocean, he was like, you've drawn a North Atlantic Wolfpack submarine that wouldn't have had the ability to travel at this submarine, which was bigger and had like additional batteries. And then I redrew it because I was like, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm in that camp of being like super anal about things like that.
Yeah.
That most people would say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, I'm like, well, it does matter. But the beauty of Lords of the Cosmos is because it's so far out, there is no, well, that's not really the accurate shotgun for a bug to have, or, hey, robots that look like the Wizard of Oz shouldn't have this kind of action. It doesn't matter. So it's very freeing because there is no wrong answer. We could have cyborg.
Sarge is literally a bug with a shotgun. He's a wasp with a shotgun.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
He's great. And we loved his intro story in issue 3, where their whole society is trying to fight with like spears and in their hands. And Umex has kind of a third party kind of terrorist group attacking their bug city that's on top of a giant bug. And they're using mortars, guns, gas, and they're getting their asses beat until Starge gets a gun.
A shotgun.
And all the humans are like, wait, these guys can't use guns. And he's like, yeah, like I got it now. So I mean, to me, Pulse is fun because it's again, it goes back in time because we're seeing layers. Like in issue 2, when we have Obsidian's origin, you see there was kind of a She-Ra and the Princess of Power group that Umex rolled over, right, decades ago. And the Lords of the Cosmos, you see the original 2 guys, the brothers, like the one that died with the statue, like they're there, and they, and then they find the last living female soldier from the Prism, right?
Yeah, the Prism, yeah.
And then you're like, wait, this is the origin of this military group coming together when it's just 2 guys walking through the desert, and they find this one woman that like escaped, right? So like we went back to that, but so then what you saw in Pulse is like after that. So it's like, okay, so those three meet up and they build an army. Like they
and it's cool the way you do callbacks like that. Like you could do callback, like I've seen like callbacks done in comic books to like earlier stuff, but the way y'all did it was like it was a very refined approach to it. Like it made sense in how you do callbacks. You weren't just calling back to something insignificant that like nobody's going to notice that, but that callback was really cool when because I didn't realize it at first either when it was the two brothers who found her. And then I like after the fact when I see the statue of him, and then I'm like, oh, I get it now. It's the brothers, and I'm like, oh. Well, then it's always fun when that kind of stuff happens in these types of books.
So some of the questions that need to be answered is where did those guys like? So we know where Prism came from, right? So it's the two brothers, Aegis, Myrmidon, and Prism. We see that they're like the main three. So we really understand where, so Prism was in this group that's kind of like She-Ra, where every girl's a color of the rainbow, right? Which, of course, in a black and white book's great, right? Oh, my God, right?
Dude, it's amazing.
Right?
So we haven't mentioned that yet.
Yeah.
And we're about to get into the art of this book.
Yeah.
So this thing is very heavily line detailed. You do a phenomenal job at it. Mm-hmm. But it's all in black and white. Mm-hmm. And grayscales, and I love old G like books like this. Like Mike Scrace in the UK who does Zip, the comic book. He does his work this way. Granted, he doesn't do the art of it, but he it's his book and he is done in black and grayscale, like amazing line work. And that's what I love about it, because you don't get to cover up any bad lines. Because there's no coloring, no inking, no nothing. Just phenomenal line work in these types of books.
So I'm a big fan of black and white artwork. I always have been. Whether it was, I still do. I love doing the fighting fantasy game books where you'd roll dice and read a book. A lot of those came from the UK.
Yep.
Stephen Jackson and Ian. I can't think of his name. Warlock of Firetop Mountain. They had some really awesome artists that did a lot of black and white for those books, and I loved them as a kid. So I've always been a fan of black and white art. Part of it was a cost consideration. Coloring escalates prices a lot, so black and white books are cheaper. You don't have to hire a colorist, and then you don't have to print color. So there's a little bit of a cost concern, but I'm also a big fan of black and white, right? So to me, we've really, really, really had some amazing artists that have done interiors and sequential work for us. And so one of the things that's been really cool when you jam with other creatives is other artists and writers have done things with we try to give very basic guidance, and then we want to see what you bring to it. So there's been a lot of really cool stuff that people have kind of worked out on their own and kind of like found little things that they kind of ran with our kind of basic guidance. And then we've taken some of that feedback from the people that have done work for us and built it into, it's like, that's a good idea. Let's bring that in. Let's make it work. Let's use that little visual cue. So one of the characters, the bad guys have a cat, right? Because Skeletor and He-Man each had a cat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have our cat, which I forget why. When we initially made it, it's called Hexalore 7. And you see it, it's in the book a little bit in the first couple issues. It's got the background character. We have a 12-page origin story for that cat.
Dude, that's insane and amazing, and I like it.
So if you notice in issue 2,
I'm a cat guy.
That cat's there, but it's got like a monocle and like some different hardware that Danny drew onto it. And so we took that, and that's like that's Hexalore 4. So we had a writer actually from the UK that we gave some basic direction and said, this character basically keeps getting killed, and then Umex keeps
bringing him back to life. Yeah.
So then we got to go back in the continuity, and we're like, okay, we showed this cat as an older version in this book, so you've got to when you do one of these older versions, you got to go back to this one where it's got this weird like eyepiece, right?
Yeah.
And then we had
that is so cool though.
Right. but then we got to catch all of our stuff because when Danny drew the cat, she drew it a little differently, you know. And you're like, all right, cool. And I think we told her to. So it's like, wait, so there's that cat, but then we go back and you'll see that version of the cat because that story is basically version 1 till it dies, version 2 till it dies, version 3 till it dies, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 7 is the last one that's in the main story. That, you know, it's kind of with the bad guys rolling around in the background, but it's a really cool story. And from a character, you're like, it's just kind of it's a cat that seemingly just is kind of a soldier, just kills people. So there's a lot of this stuff that like we're hyper. Like when I was a kid, right? I was one of those kids. I'd get a toy, I'd watch a cartoon, and I would wonder, you know, hey, the guy in the background, like, where's he going? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, I see a background painting. I see a second castle. Like, so when I was a little kid, and I watched The Wizard of Oz, the classic movie, there's the 2 little roads, right, with the yellow brick road. There's like a purple road and then yellow one.
Yeah.
I'm the asshole that I would have been like, where's the other one go? Like where does it go, right? I don't know the movie about it, but there's, to me, there's always like the stuff you don't see, but your imagination is probably better than we can show you. So kind of in my role as a creator, I do writing, I do art, obviously, but then part of it is being like this. If we're going to jump around with timelines and have all these characters doing different stuff, you got to have someone that's like the continuity, you know, overlord. Yeah. So those are the kind of weird things that I look for to make sure, hey, remember we had that character, you know, we zip back in the past to show that character doing this. Well, then, okay, then why did they have that? Okay, well, that was, this character was going to have different iterations and we were going to show him getting killed, but like getting killed in different ways. So, and one of the fun things is the writer that wrote that story, he's a big fan of a lot of the stuff you're talking about. So he put a lot of callbacks to the first 4 issues that he picked up on that he wanted to like re-highlight. At the same time, he also did some really cool original stuff that ties into existing stuff that we've done, which is cool.
So do you do traditional mediums or have you made the switch over to go 100% digital now when it comes to your artwork?
So there was a time when I did all my penciling by hand and I hand inked everything with India ink and little micron pens. Being a dad, full-time job, I had to bail on the inking just to get stuff done. So at this point, I still do everything by hand with pencil that I do. Yeah. And I have 2 guys that are digital inkers that I send my originals to as a high-resolution scan, and I tell them to ink it. They're probably better inkers than me. They work digitally. Yeah. It'd be cool if they did it all by hand, but at this point, if that's the medium they choose to work in, that's the medium they choose to work in. Yeah. So in this book, my art was pencil with digital inks. The other 2 stories in issue 5 were all hand pencil, hand inked. So the other really 2, cool. Luigi and Sasha, I have all their originals. Each issue has a folder of all the originals, and then they get sold through Kickstarters and Indiegogo's. So those guys did their stuff by hand, but we have some stuff that's in the can for some future issues that's all digital. Right. So it's different from story to story to artist to artist. So actually a couple of the ones we have coming up are all just digital. That's cool. For me, it's pencil.
It is cool though. And nobody outside of you in your team are going to know the difference anyway. I mean, you're going to have a very good eye to notice the difference between the 2 because it's not easy.
Well, at this point, we've been doing this long enough that now you've got AI as an issue, and that's a big no-go for me. I don't want to see that in our books. That wasn't an issue until about 1.5 years ago, and it's to me that's a whole different thing. Like I've heard some, well, people are using computers. When you're using a computer as a tool, it's just a digital pencil. Yeah. Whereas AI is scraping other people's work and like combining it into some algorithm to build things that are just kind of like, it's like we're stealing, but we'll steal 1% from like 100 people. So it's not as easy to see per se, but I don't want that. But yeah, I probably will never go to digital, but my inkers use digital on my work, which is cool with me.
No, I like it, and especially the fact that you just come out and said, no, we don't do AI, which I'm always happy to hear. I think so far, knock on wood, I've had a lot of customers on over the last year, and I don't think I've had a single one whose work looked like it was AI in any kind of way.
I will tell you this, and this is and this came out of left field at my regular job, which has nothing to do with comics. I had a person at work that said, "Man," he goes, "I got an idea for you." And I said, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "You could use AI in your comics, and think of all the work you would save." And this person said it to me from a place of caring, like they were helping me.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well," I said, I let me just kind of walk you back. I was like, if you make art, whether it's dance, music, writing, visual arts, whatever, the finished product is a goal. But I'm like, the process and creating it and learning, I get massive enjoyment out of that. So to me, to take that away just to speed to the finish line, I'm like, it would be like having food with no flavor.
Mhm.
We could just inject
No,
it.
absolutely.
Hey, here's calories. You don't need to eat. There's no flavor. And we'll just inject you once a day and you'll have calories and you won't die. Think of all the time you'll save eating. And it's like, no, I like the inefficiencies of eating and cooking and, flavors and food and all that stuff. So, and I told him that and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, no. I said, you're trying to help, but you're not a creator. You look at it as work.
Yeah.
If you have a passion for creating,
It's not work at all.
like
It's really not.
And look, dude, sometimes it is painful and it's a struggle, and you'll struggle to figure out a pose or a page, or you'll have to redo work. And like, there's shit that's painful. One of the pages in Lords 5 that I did, the original is actually 3 pieces of board sliced with a razor and taped on the back, because the top panel and the bottom panel were exactly how I wanted them, and the panel in the middle, it just wasn't quite right. It's like Zemba's pointing a pistol in the middle. It's like 3
Yeah,
panels.
I know exactly.
And I erased so many times in the middle that the paper like fell apart. And I redid the center panel on a different board, and I was really happy with how that turned out. And I took a ruler and a knife and I cut them.
Yeah.
And I reassembled the pages. And look, dude, that was a pain in the ass, and I hated it. But it's not about the finished product. It's about the struggle and achieving the struggle to get where I wanted to get. And
It's a labor of love.
Yeah. And like, so that page specifically to me is gorgeous because it's like scarred, man. On the back, it's like I cut them apart, laid them down, taped them back together. So it's like one.
The measurements have to be spot on still.
Yeah.
It still has to be a certain requirement. It's not like you could just like do this. No,
yeah,
that's awesome though.
And someone say, well, think of all the time you'd saved if you did this or that. It's like, yeah, but I'm super proud of that page and that how I fought to make that middle panel the best it could be. Sequential art stuff, you're drawing the same characters over and over and over. You're trying for different angles, different zooms, different pan outs. So you don't want it to be the same, and you want to move the eye and everything else. So I'm really proud of that page, but it was a freaking struggle, man. But I'm proud of the struggle, right? That's the
it's like when your mom would make you dinner growing up, and you're like, "Hey, mom, what's the secret ingredient?" And she'd be like, "It's love, son."
Yeah,
and I see that no different in art. When people are talking about AI and that kind of stuff, like, yeah, you can do it, but you're not putting the love into it to make it what you want it to be. It's like the easy button at Staples.
Yeah, and like I said, to me,
and it has no soul.
To me, the struggle is part of the enjoyment that we struggle to get better. I can look back at these 5 issues, and I can look at all the mistakes, and I can look at all the improvements and change and evolution as writers, creators, editors, putting the books together from a formatting and printing process. So issue 5, when I was putting it together, I went to go back to reorder the original 4 books from a printer I used in Arizona. And they said, well, all these things are the wrong formats. They're the wrong sizes. I said, well, how the hell did you print them before? Well, they said the guy that was printing them was doing stuff he shouldn't have done. He should not have printed your books for years the way they were. And I was like, what? So they said, you got to reformat all these books. And then I went back to the old books that I had printed, and I had realized that there was printing errors that no one ever noticed. I never noticed them, where there should have been gutters at the bottom. The art was printed out past the page, and we lost like small bits of art. So one of the reasons that Lords of the Cosmos 5 was such a burden was not only did I have to get the current book correct, I had to go back and reformat every single old issue. I was cleaning up margins, cleaning up pages.
Yeah.
I formatted each book for PDF and print. So that was really like doing 5 books of like, okay, you've got 168 pages that you clean up and reformat it, and you're like, oh my God.
And PDF can be a fickle beast itself.
PDF can be different than print for a lot of reasons, right? Just because like printing, you may leave a little bit for a bleed and a cut, whereas a PDF is digital, it's different. So I hit a point now, I can format a book for you forward and back. For years, apparently I was just the idiot being like, oh, here's a PNG, here's a PDF, here's a JPEG, and they were all different sizes. And this guy at this printing company was just like, sure, fuck it. We'll, excuse my language, we'll just print it.
Oh,
and it printed, but I didn't even have the eye to pick up on the mistakes. I'm not saying I'm a printing expert, but I'm a lot more dangerous. So there's a lot of this stuff that like you learn, and like the guy you are today versus the guy you were when you started, and this started in 2016. Like I'm a lot more dangerous. I'm better, and I want to keep getting better. But there's an enjoyment tackling those problems. I had to go fix all those damn pages. I didn't say, hey, AI, fix these pages. No, I sat with every single page and fixed them for print and PDF. Like, so
that's wild, man.
So like I said, I have a very, there's times where I look at these pages and I love them. And then I'm like, some of my, you know what I mean? Or you take a film director where it's like, we have to watch this film over and over and over and over and over and over. And, you know, look, you could take a film, obviously you're a Star Wars fan, so you could take like Empire Strikes Back, and I could say, watch it 60 times. Dude, I don't care how good that movie is, and it's great.
Yeah, 60 times in a row is going to be a struggle, especially rewind, fast forward. Like, I don't like this little thing right here. Let's see this little thing right here. Yeah, let's cut that out. Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
And you'll hit a point where it's like, I never want to see it. It's like, it's a great movie. And you're like, brother, I hear you.
That's why you hear so many actors and directors and stuff like that and editors who go, I won't see that. Like, I worked on that and I won't watch it because they pour so many hours of their life into it. And they're just like, yeah, it's great. Everybody told me it's a great movie. Well, I never want to see it again.
and there's another part of it too. You see all your mistakes. There's all the, so I mean, to me, no matter how much you work on these books, you just see like there is a level of like, you see all the warts. So I do think it is hard to have fun with your own work to a degree. One thing that is fun about an anthology is having other people do stuff. So I kind of get to geek out over like other people's art. Like, oh, that's cool, right? But you know, one of the things, and it's a blessing and a curse. Some of the guys, so like Luigi and Sasha, the two artists, they're both from Italy that did the art for the other two stories that were the main story. I mean, those guys, I look at them and I feel like an amateur. I felt their art was so good. Like I was like, damn, I can't believe these guys are in my book. Like I was just,
you know, what's wild is you just brought up the fact that they're both from Italy. I just had Sabe on here who does Shock-Headed Peter, the art for it. He's also from Italy, and I had him on the podcast I think 2 weeks ago to talk about his work and that kind of stuff and his influences. So it's just wild that you're like, oh yeah, both these guys are from Italy, and I'm like, I just had an Italian artist on here too, and it's crazy like the number of Italian artists out there that people are sleeping on. Don't sleep on those Italian artists because they are so good.
I mean, they are both so good. Like I said, I kind of felt embarrassed at some point looking at how good their art was. I was like, woo, this stuff is great. It's a global world, man. I mean, both those guys, I found Luigi on Instagram and I found Sasha on Facebook. And I just was like, hey, you know, I'd love to have you work on my book. And they were awesome. I've been blessed. We've had a lot of really good people that have worked on the book, guest covers, pin-ups, sequentials. Probably one of the worst things I have right now is I probably have 5 stories that are completely done that just need to be put in a book that are done by others. That they were things that we've gotten done over the last couple of years. Some of them are still sitting around since COVID.
Yeah,
like Yeah, hey, dude, and then it's just the problem is it's just if I could get these books out faster, I could get it. But there's a lot of stuff that's just like done and like ready to go. It just needs lettered, put it to print, and go. So I probably will do.
It's really cool though that you have like just all this material for this story just ready to go when the time is appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I got to go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's jump into DeLorean real quick and go back to the 1980s.
Yeah.
Not that we haven't been walking down memory lane for the last hour almost, but why 80s? Let's backtrack. Which creators or franchises from the 80s are still influencing you today? I know we've been hitting on it a little bit, but if there's like one or two that you could like say, I derive a lot of my story from these right here.
I think probably the number one influence is the Filmation Masters of the Universe. Filmation cut a lot of corners. They did a lot of stuff that was kind of cheap and corny, but that showed to me when I was a kid with the toys, and each toy had a little comic book that was about this big. That whole thing was fun. I might have been 9 or 10 when that was new. No, it might have been like 7 or 8, but they were very fun. They were very crazy. And I really think that was a fundamental thing for me. In 2003, the Four Horsemen, which is a toy company in LA, did some like really high-end Masters redo toys. And they put a cartoon out to support those toys. Those toys and that cartoon kind of recodified how cool, like the concept in the 80s was really cool. The execution was a little bit lacking.
Yeah.
Early 2000s cartoon, if you've never seen it, was like peak. It was like, okay, let's take this concept and we'll turn it up to an 11. So they had Korean animators do it. The action was three-dimensional. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's probably.
I've seen it.
It's great.
It's on Netflix too. Like, there's a whole new like He-Man storylines and the whole 9 going on.
Yeah. Well, for me, the 03 version was just incredible. So, I mean, to me, Masters of the Universe is one that I'd say if I had to pick one that was really fundamental, I would say Masters of the Universe. And I would say the other one that still sticks in my head that never really got as big was Thundar the Barbarian, which was really crazy because it was like a violent post-apocalyptic Saturday morning Ruby Spears cartoon where it's like, the moon crashes in, the moon splits in half and like oceans drown cities. And now it's this world in the future where this guy with a lightsaber and like a talking bear and like this lady that's a magician are like going to fight across like destroyed landscapes in North America and fight wizards, monsters. And it just, there was so much creativity in that show that I loved it. And look, the other thing I'll say, big anime fan, I'm wearing my Ninja Scroll shirt right now, which is cool because it's got like Ninja Scroll stuff in the sleeve. Huge fan of anime. I was born in the 70s. I remember watching Battle of the Planets as a very small child when I was like 3 or 4. That and Speed Racer, and then it was Robotech, and then
Speed Racer.
Then it was Bubblegum Crisis, then it was Dominion Tank Police, then it was Akira, Giant Robo, Cowboy Bebop, etc. So to me, anime has always been a huge influence to me. That it's weird because I've been a fan my whole life. There's new shows out now that are amazing. They're in my mind like Dan to Dan and Solo Leveling, which I think are amazing. But I love to go back.
I was actually just catching up on the newest season of Dan to Dan. I hadn't started season 2 yet, so I was starting season 2. But
then I love to go back and watch like Midnight Eye Goku or City Hunter or whatever. There's so much. That stuff's always in my mind with an aesthetic. There's so much kinetic energy. I love that.
Explains the anime cover that you did on issue 5 as well.
Yeah, so that was a big nod to Bubblegum Crisis. When I first got Bubblegum Crisis, they were in like clamshell VHS tapes. So what we did for that cover is I found a guy that he did Cycorn and Obsidian as anime characters in the 90s style. And then we got a photograph of one of those clamshell boxes and then put like the unicolor block at the bottom, and we matched up the fonts from the box, because even Danny, who did the layout, she said, this looks like shit. Why are we using these fonts? And I was like, I showed her a picture and she goes, okay. She goes, I get it. She goes, that still looks like shit. And I said, well,
No.
I know. I said, yeah, you're not wrong. It looks like shit, but we're trying to like imitate it. Like this is literally if Lords of the Cosmos was a clamshell box from like 1989. So that's why we did that. And again, some people were like, holy shit, like this is like one of the like they picked up on it, you know, and you're like, yeah. Like, that's the whole point. So I love anime.
Shout out to CJ in the chat there. He has a fantastic horror podcast where he does nothing but horror.
Hi, CJ.
Amazing dude, super smart. So if Lords of the Cosmos was a toy line in 1986, which figure would be impossible to find at Toys R Us? Because you got the back and it tells you all the figures from the line. Which one of those figures is going to be next to impossible to ever find? If it ever really existed.
I think the obvious answer would be the two gigantic characters, because they would be like the USS Flag, right? Where it's like this holy grail of toys. People are like, oh my God, I saw one, I saw a box. Because they're oversized, they're too big, and they're hard to get. So I follow a lot of toy stuff on social media, and there's a guy that he puts old toy catalog stuff up, and his name's like US Toy Dad or something like that. So I'll put up like Sears catalogs and JCPenney's and stuff like that. And he put a thing up that was a play set called Eternia. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So there was Gray Skull, there was Snake Mountain, then there was this thing that connected with both of them that had like a monorail on it. And it was a toy that was big. It was like their biggest play set ever. I had never heard of it until like last year. And I'm like, I don't even remember this as a kid. And so I think the hardest ones to find are when these toy lines are near the end. So maybe it would be like a gigantic, like a gigantic play set of the planet or something like that.
Oh,
right?
that'd be kind of dope, especially because the planet itself is living.
The planet Aiden playset. Well, you picked up on that. Is the planet alive? Like there's an eyeball in it, right? In issue 1, that we kind of. So that's going to be addressed in issue 6 again, right? There's going to be more. There's going to be more of that.
You just keep building up that good hype for issue 6. I like it.
So we're like, is this planet alive? What's going on here, right? So
because I mean, you got the whole vibe of it, and like even before the eye, like as you, because you see basically the veins of the planet and how the planet is providing the power and the life energy of this planet. So that like the whole thing is just like, maybe this planet's alive. And then you do see the giant eyeball, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe it's kind of like from the Marvel universe where, there's a living being inside the core of that planet just waiting to explode out.
So the hardest toy to get would be the Planet Aiden play set, right? They would have made it when the toy line was declining, and they would say, hey, we made this $150 play set with a gigantic eyeball and a mountain and like a monorail and like the pipes and everything else. That would be the toy that you couldn't get. It would be like, oh my God, you would find out this year, 2020, you said there was a Planet Aiden play set. Yeah, we only made a few. It was only out in stores for a little bit. That'd be the one that'd be hard to get.
Yeah, but it was only in bigger cities, and there was only one per store per every 10 stores. So one in every 10 stores in a major city got exactly one.
Correct. That's how you'd find out. So that would be the Planet Aiden playset. Yeah, because the bad guys would have their Fortress playset and the good guys would have theirs. But it's like the bigger, because like G.I. Joe had a space shuttle toy. Did you know that?
I did, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I found out about that recently too, and I was like, "Damn, I didn't know that." I remember, I didn't know that, and it was probably near the end of its big run. They were pumping out bigger toys, and that was just kind of the end, right?
They crowdfund a lot of those play sets now, which is really cool. I mean, they're like pricey. I know on the Star Wars side of the house, I keep up with those, and they just did a Jabba's sail barge on that side. I think it was the Jabba sail barge. Yeah, and it was like a $600 it's just to buy in on it. And then if they didn't hit X amount of units ordered, they couldn't produce the toy. So I'm like, so you're throwing in $600 and you're not getting that $600 back.
Oh,
even
you
if
don't
it
get
doesn't
it back
go.
Ooh. Oh.
So you're rolling dice, literally, with your hard-earned cash. So, but is there going to be a video game?
Lords of the Cosmos, I wish. Like,
Yeah,
I think that'd be a great side
you brought
scroll.
it. You had it in your thing, and when I read through Indiegogo and Kickstarter stuff, I'm like, I'm picking out the details in.
So if Lords of the Cosmos was a video game, it would be like the 4-person X-Men side scroll that just sucked quarters, right? That's what it would be.
But it would be so fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then you'd have like the main villains as bosses, and it would be a quarter eating machine. That's what it would be. That would totally be what Lords of the Cosmos would be. It'd be the X-Men 4-player cabinet.
And I would just be sitting there, dropping them in.
You could pick the characters, and they would be like generic. They would have like generic soldiers, and then you hit Umex's, goons along the way. Like you'd fight Psycorn like 3 levels in. You'd fight Obsidian in so many levels, and like they would be like the.
Well, Obsidian would have to be like the number 2 before you face Umek or Umex.
Yeah,
but
she's the main squeeze, man.
She is, and she don't let anybody forget it either.
No.
She's quick to remind people. So let's talk about. So you did Kickstarter, and you also did Indiegogo, which is a first for us here at USDN. We've dealt with many of Kickstarters. We've dealt with many of self-funded books, but this is the first one that's currently still active on Indiegogo, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it's good for one more week.
How? What's the difference between the two, really? And like because you still have to build the page, you still have to preload everything. You still have it's a lot of work to build a front page of one of these sites for your book. But what's the biggest difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter?
So Indiegogo is the biggest name brand. Like they are the they're Coca-Cola, right? So the first thing that Kickstarter is going to bring is that they have a lot of eyes on it. They just have more customers.
Yeah.
I think their platform is a little easier to use in the back end. A little bit.
Okay.
So why do 2? A couple years ago, I picked up on people doing exactly this, where they would put it on Kickstarter, and then they would do like BackerKit, Indiegogo, Crowdfunder, Zoop. There's different ones.
Yeah.
So the reason, there's a couple thoughts to it. One, there's a delay. Maybe new people find you, right? Like, I didn't know you a year ago, and shoot, you know what I mean? Like, this is cool. So it's like a second chance to kind of bring people around. And then I also think that you can do a little bit of re-engagement. So we have a couple things on the Indiegogo that weren't on Kickstarter. Like, hey, we have a couple different covers, right?
Yeah.
And then there's some people that just like different platforms. Like, oh yeah, you will meet people that are like, oh, I hate Kickstarter for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no different than someone saying, oh my God, we all love going to McDonald's, and you're like, oh, I'll never go there. I hate it. I like going to, Five Guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, come on, we're going here, and you're like, no, I don't like that. I think
it makes sense. It 100% makes sense. It was just one of those where I didn't know the difference personally because I had never seen an Indiegogo until today. I mean, I knew it existed, but I've never seen like anybody like go, oh yeah, I'm on Kickstarter and I'm on Indiegogo, which is kind of cool.
So Kickstarter was kind of like the main act, and I've called this the encore. So basically, my friend Tara, I paid her to help put everything together for the Kickstarter, and then I just gave her, a fee to basically, I was like, just export the work from this one to that one. So a lot of it's just, right, you're not reinventing the wheel per se. Yeah. It's like a lot of the stuff's just done. You can just kind of export it over. Indiegogo just changed. They got bought by a company called GameFound. So the one problem we did have, in full transparency, we had the campaign ready to go. And then one of the guys from Indiegogo sent us a note and said, hey, you should wait till we transfer to the new platform and your campaign will be saved. it was saved, but there was an issue, kind of like if you had an old Word file, then you try to open it in Microsoft today, it could be like, oh, there's no spacing or paragraphs. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
shoot, I got to go back and make it look like the way it's supposed to. So we did have to go back and kind of reformat all the data. So there's some nice things about it. You can, like one really nice thing with Indiegogo, if you really want to get in the weeds. So like pre-launch followers is a big deal now. One problem that I have with Kickstarter is if you have like 400 people follow your project, you don't get access to who they are. With Indiegogo, you have access to who those people are. So there's little things like that where it's like, okay, like I'm glad you're telling me who these people are because it's valuable to me to be able to communicate with them.
No, that's really cool though.
So my coloring book project that I did before this, I did a coloring book between Lords 4 and Lords 5. That was the first time I did a double dip campaign. So my main Kickstarter campaign raised like $16,000. And then the Indiegogo raised like $1,200. And this one's kind of the same. Like Kickstarter was like $800. The Indiegogo is at like $750. But to me, it's $750 in backers that we didn't get the first time. So my expectations, my gut feeling is it may get to $1,000 by the end, right? But it's expectations, right? If I looked at my Indiegogo for my coloring book, it did, about 8%, 7% of Kickstarter. This is maybe about the same, maybe a little bit more. Yeah. Again, so to me, if it finds one new reader, okay, cool, great. I mean, and I think it's got 10 backers for $751 last I checked it. It's
I mean, that's not bad. I mean, it's just, you're giving opportunities for people, like if they're watching the show today.
Correct.
And when I do the re-release in a couple of days, they're still going to have a few days left to get in on this campaign.
Exactly.
So you're literally going to have an opportunity to go in. You can get all the issues you want digitally. You can catch up on it. You can get any of the actual physical copies that you want, 1 through 5. You have an amazing lineup of covers with this. You have anime variants, spicy variants, international artists. You have your black and white metal. You name it, you have a cover that will inspire somebody. And you also do personalized covers, if I'm not mistaken, for some of them.
So I did put a ban on sketch covers for Indiegogo. I didn't want to. I really put a lot of time into Kickstarter sketch covers, so I just didn't. What I want to do is wrap this up, get these rewards out in the mail, and I want to wrap it up and be done. And I'm going to start working on the next comic. I didn't want to do sketch covers. I didn't want to take another 6 weeks to work on all of them. So on this, no. But I will in the next Kickstarter. I
do got to ask though, what has been your like the best thing you've ever gotten from a request for a sketch cover when it comes to the book?
So, a friend of mine that I went to college with asked me to draw the Lords of the Cosmos characters at a college party.
That's actually kind of cool.
I drew them playing beer pong.
Little Animal House action.
Yeah, like it's like Zemba and like the guy who's a Minotaur, and there's a handful of just these kind of oddball characters. They're having some drinks and they're playing beer pong.
And what's the weirdest? PG. Oh, we'll rated R. We won't go past rated R.
I think the weirdest one, because I live near Penn State University, I had a guy that was like, I want to see the Lords of the Cosmos characters fighting at Beaver Stadium. So I drew the 2 gigantic characters, the dragon and the turtle, like smashing, like the one's
that's
flying.
Actually kind of cool.
Yeah, so that was kind of weird. It's kind of a little bit of a local flair because
weird but cool.
Yeah, weird but cool.
Just 2 titans going at each other.
Yeah, I get weird sketch requests at shows. There's one gentleman that always asks me to, like, I just did a sketch cover for a guy at Morgantown, West Virginia, that he asked me to draw Barbarella nude, sitting in a chair holding a hamburger the size of a chair over her head. So
I did read that on your.
Yeah.
That was on your Instagram, was it
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, so you want a topless woman in a chair holding a hamburger the size of like a chair over her head. So it's like you have this naked
It's
lady.
amazing how many people still, well, from our generation, that they love Barbarella still, like to a point where Barbarella is still in production. She
Sure.
still gets runs.
Well, she has a hamburger the size of a chair over her head. So no, but I would say the Lords of the Cosmos ones, a lot of people are just like, just draw something cool. And I usually just dick around with it, and then I just try to think of a character that I want to draw, and I just kind of do that. I just did a sketch cover just for shits and giggles recently on an issue 2 slab, or an issue 2 blank cover. I just drew Bonesaw, the guy with the chainsaw, just kind of like running over it. You know what I mean? So that one I just have it. It's like I'll just have it at shows for, someone will pick it up. But
so anytime I've seen Bonesaw pop up in the comic book, I go immediately to Superman and Macho Man, Randy Savage, when they're in the wrestling ring. You're going 1-on-1 with the Bonesaw.
Yeah. Well, I always think of the Bonesaw character. I think of him a lot of the character that Doomsday that kills Superman, where he doesn't speak.
Okay, yeah.
Goggles. So our Bonesaw is just kind of this guy with he doesn't speak. He just kills things, and he just has a saw. And his little story in issue 1, I thought was amazing.
That was a really good one too. I like that one a lot.
He doesn't say a word, man. He's just he's this guy.
And
he's kind
by the time the character who is hunting him realizes what is going on, it's too late. He's fucked.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's the thing. He doesn't talk.
This is so cool.
And is he intelligent? He could be very intelligent, but like I said, he's kind of a Michael Myers. He's kind of a Doomsday character. But I'll have to send it to you. I was really happy with his little sketch cover.
Let's talk about the community and the fan base and the legacy of this book. You built a very dedicated fan community, and people have backed this for years, obviously. They've cosplayed your characters. They've made custom toys. They send you fan art.
Yep.
How has this fan community shaped this series? I mean, obviously, we know that, they've requested certain characters and that kind of stuff. But outside of that, like, how has, like, the fans, like, shaped this for you?
I think anyone that makes something, and I guess dancers, writers, whatever, is that I don't think any artist can vacuum. We do feed off of the energy that fans give you. So I do think that getting that positive feedback from people, it's like fuel, right? It's
absolutely
the energy of our transformers. So even an interview like this, it's awesome, right? It's great. Obviously, you've read the books, you had great questions, you're into it, it appealed to you. It's the fuel that keeps your creative fire going. Because if you were just in a vacuum, you could still do it, but it lacks the pizzazz. You enjoy the applause, you enjoy people saying, dude, that was cool as shit. You know what I mean? Like, I got what you were doing, like, holy shit. Because ideally, you want to make things for yourself. But when other people that are strangers or people you don't know, they're like, holy shit, dude, like, this is what I got out of your project. That's great. I just saw this yesterday in the news. Lily Wachowski, one of the people that made the original Matrix movie, was responding to people getting a message out of the Matrix that was not her intention. So her intention was that it was about transgender. Like, that's her stated point of what she felt the Matrix was.
Which makes sense for her.
It does. But I guess now and I didn't realize this, but the article I was reading was saying, they were saying like, well, a lot of right wingers have co-opted the red pill scene is like, that's a right wing message. And she had said, well, you can't control things once they're out, right? You can't. They're out in the world. She said, I can't do anything about it. It's not what the intention was, but I can't fight it, right?
Yeah.
So ideally, if you're doing something and people are getting what you wanted out of it, then that's a little bit more rewarding than, oh my God, no, you're all getting the wrong message out of this. So,
and here's the thing, though, people are going to take away what they want to from a certain piece.
Yes.
And you're at the end of the day, the only thing you care about as a creator, as an artist, as a creative, in general, is that somebody took something away from it. It may not be what you were wanting to convey 100%, but at the end of the day, they still took something away from it. They still
I
had
feel
some type of emotion with it.
I feel blessed that most of the people that have talked to me about the books got out of it what I want. Like they got out of it what I wanted them to get out of it. So especially reading that article the other day about the Matrix, I was like, okay, well, I mean, check it out. Like when you read the Zemba story, you were focused more on the murder of the friend. Whereas I viewed that more as a secondary thing and more of like, no, she's going for a power play. She's less concerned about her friend. She still doesn't like that, but right. So I viewed that a little differently, but that's cool. Like you got a little bit of a different flavor. You viewed it more as a personal payback, whereas I viewed that as more of a secondary goal. That's cool.
Well, it wasn't until they were at the meeting with UMETs that when her attitude and everything, I'm like, okay, well, she's got some animosity here as well. I'm yes, I think she's upset about her friend, but I think that friend dying is just a secondary thing because there's some animosities here, and it is the whole time I'm thinking there's another story within this story that isn't being talked about yet, and when it does get talked about, it's going to be fucking amazing.
Well, they're all
you gave it to us just a little bit at the end of 5.
They're all really bad people and creatures because they're not all people, and they're awful. And like, what would happen when you put really awful people together? They don't like the good guys. They don't like each other. Like it's like no, like maybe.
Oh yeah, you get that whole vibe from everybody. That everybody is just there because this one guy is the badder of the bad guys. Yeah. But if enough of the badder of the bad guys team together, that guy ain't so bad no more.
That's right. But maybe he can take them all out. But hey, but back to the fans. No, like I said, to me, fans are like energy. They can boost us up. It's a two-way street. Like so, one of the things that I've become more and more aware of, as I've done more and more stuff, is that if you have a platform, even a little platform, when you say things, it's important to think about what you say because it does affect people. I've tried to become very conscious about, when I speak to people and to try to be, positive and thoughtful with what I say. But it's also a two-way street. So for a fan just to be like, hey, man, I really appreciate what you're doing. That means an incredible amount. I mean, not only to myself, but any creator. So I would always say, if you have a creator that you like and you're a fan, it never hurts to send them a little note and just be, hey, man, hey, I just want to let you know what you're doing is great. I really enjoy it. Whether even if you can't, if you're like, I can't even afford to buy anything right now, just even the words like that, it's all very important. Yeah. So to me, I love Lords of the Cosmos because I like to read it myself, and it's something that speaks to me. I've been blessed that there's been enough people to really kind of help take it to the next level with the financial support and the interest, the fandom and everything else. So like I said, to me, I could do it in a vacuum, but it wouldn't be anywhere near as fun just by myself.
Oh yeah. So before I let you get out of here, let the council know where they can follow you and where they can stay into Lord of the Cosmos.
So you can follow me on Facebook. My art page is Jason Lenox Illustrator. So if you search for that, it's like facebook.com/Jason Lenox Illustrator. So there's that. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as @LenoxArtist and on Blue Sky. Right? I don't want to forget Blue Sky.
Yep, Blue Sky.
On that, also @LenoxArtist. I have an Etsy store, which is Lenox Lenox Art Emporium. You can look me up there. And if you want to check out the Indiegogo, I do have it pinned on all my social media pages.
So I do as well. Anywhere where I've tagged you, I have that tagged as well.
Appreciate it. So, but it's just, Lords of the Cosmos 5 on Indiegogo. And, whether if you need help finding it, just find me @LenoxArtist and just shoot me a message or comment or ask the chairman. He'll direct you. He's been great.
No, absolutely. I'm pretty good at tagging things and keeping that kind of stuff up to date on any of the posts where I'm talking about art today, actually.
And I do appreciate it. And I really tried to get just get the message out today. And obviously they can catch a replay of this later if they're not catching it live.
100% here. not tomorrow, but Tuesday, it will go live again, and it will go out to all podcasts and platforms. And even in the description of the podcast platform, whatever it is, whether it's Apple, if you hit the description, it's going to have all your links in there. It's going to have all that in there. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I try to do good is tagging everything the proper way and making sure people know where to follow you. And if they want to contact you, all that information's in there. So, but Jason, I want to thank you for taking the time to dive into the world of Aiden with us tonight.
Yes.
It's a place where gods bleed, machines rebel, and cartoon logic drives tanks into war against mutant cyborg nightmares, which is dope as hell. Y'all go check out this book, please. But council members, support the campaign, support indie creators, support the chaos. Indiegogo links are in the description. Go arm yourselves and prepare for battle. Jason, welcome to the Council of Nerds, my friend. Yourself, Lords of the Cosmos are officially USDN approved.
Awesome.
And with that, this has been the USDN podcast where indie comics come to life and the Council of Nerds are adjourned.
It's a trap!